great to talk to the film labs. If it weren't for the 2005 shootout that the lab ran, I would not actually be a filmmaker. That's actually what got me started. That was the kick in my pants that I needed to stop talking about making movies and actually get started. So it's actually always an honor to come back and talk to you guys. I guess what you just saw is a little bewildering, and the movie is kind of like that. It was intentionally kind of a combination of different tones and even genres, and the thought behind the design of the film sounds very pretentious directory, but it was basically to kind of, for those of you who've been through the grieving process, when you've lost a loved one, it's actually quite a roller coaster of emotions. It's not just all sadness and you're hiding under the bed, it's actually bewildering extremes of super despair and joy, thinking about the person, thinking about the good times you shared with the person who's no longer here. So our idea behind the movie was to try to create a movie that kind of put you in there. So the movie starts off as one thing, winds up as another thing, and kind of tries to take you through the emotional journey that the characters go through. So I guess getting back to that, yeah, I had always wanted to make films from like when I was a little kid. I was interested in, just grew up on like 70s and 80s sci-fi. Was always talking about making a movie with like my classmates in elementary school, but just never got it together. I'm from a working class immigrant family, and they weren't against me pursuing anything artistic, but there's not going to be like, oh, JP has a talent and we should send him to enrichment courses. There's nothing like that when your mom's a waitress at a Japanese restaurant. That just doesn't exist, So it's like, go off and do your own thing. And, at the time there was no such thing as like, digital video. So, and, cutting a movie on your computer, we didn't have computers. So it was like, oh, we have to try to find a Super 8 camera to do this, and we just never did, And so that kind of gave up on that as a childhood thing. But it always stuck in the back of my mind. It's like, boy, I really want to give this a go one day. And it was a couple years after I finished grad school. This is like literally like 25 years later. I finished grad school in urban planning at NYU. I was working at the MTA here, your faithful transit authority, and as a transportation planner. And I was like, there's this other side of me that I really need to explore. Otherwise I'm going to be rather bitter when I get much older. So I started to, I got involved with the Asian American theater scene here, and from there that's where I met Jo and and DeBargo and a lot of fantastic talent that I'm really happy many of them have risen up, and you'll recognize them. Just this incredible talent pool. So I wound up doing like really small-scale theater shows with a couple theater groups, and then from there started shooting short films involving a lot of the same actors that I met through that scene. I wouldn't be a filmmaker if it weren't for the fact that I live in New York and am just close to so much incredible talent, and that Final Cut Pro, and digital video was invented so that inexpensively you could make something look good and coherent. There wasn't a game plan other than, trying to do a short. When I started, just trying to do a short like every year, or maybe 2 shorts a year. If I liked what I came up with, to send them out to film festivals. If film festivals accepted them, then I would try to travel to as many festivals as I could to see what it was like to show my movie in front of an audience, and to meet like-minded people who were, at various stages of getting their work out there. Some of them would become collaborators, like someone I met on the film festival. He was one was an editor on my film, one shot a couple of my short films, and just to be a part of the community, and to be inspired to say, wow, I could make a movie and I could be making better ones. To be inspired by the work that's out there, to push myself. So there wasn't much of a game plan other than that. And meanwhile, I had my full-time day job, so I was working at the MTA, and on my nights, weekends, and holidays, I'd be shooting or planning a shoot or thinking about shooting. So it was about, I shot my first short in 2005, and then we shot this. I started writing this in 2011, so it was after about 6 years after shooting my first short. I'm obviously not on the fast track to anything, I'm slow because I started late, I'm a late bloomer, but also I have a full-time day job, as many of you do. But I wasn't going to give up on the dream. I wasn't going to say, oh, I've got a full-time day job, the only way I can be a filmmaker is if I quit my day job and then, go to film school, right, which a lot of people do, and which is a great, valid choice. I know people have done that and been very successful. Or I'll quit and become a full-time filmmaker, which is a good way to poverty, like directly to poverty. And also a lot of people do that as well, and I totally respect that. And but the choice for me was basically, I'm in this job, and I gotta figure out how to make the best use of what I have. And then that's a recurring theme that I think you'll hear me and Jo talk about throughout the making of our film, is that the whole world is, it's not that the world is against you, it's the world is indifferent, to you, So I'm not so egotistical to think that the universe really cares about my failure or success. The universe just doesn't care. So you're always trying to, there's always a disadvantage. You always have some kind of disadvantage, right? I mean, you don't have the money, you don't have the connections, you don't have the time, blah, blah, blah. I have all that, I have all those same disadvantages as you. So if I can do it, you certainly can do it. The key always, I think at every step of the way, is like to turn the disadvantages that you have into an advantage, It's not like judo, it's not the whole idea behind judo, something like that, one of the martial arts or something like that. But basically, instead of saying, oh gosh, I only have this, I really need to have this, say, this thing that I have is actually special, and how can I leverage the hell out of the little thing that I do have to get a little bit further? There's always going to be someone with better connections than you, better money, better dressed, work with what you got and you'll really go much further than a lot of people who just have things handed to them. So you'll see that as a recurring theme. But I this timeline up just because when I was putting this together, I was like, wow, this is kind of how it broke down. So after, I think, 5 or 6 years of doing shorts, I was like, well, okay, I think I should try doing a feature. Now, people have been saying, after my first short or two, oh, when are you going to do your feature? And I've seen other people do a feature after, doing 1 or 2 shorts. Sometimes it worked out for them, sometimes it didn't. I knew I wasn't ready personally. I wasn't ready personally. I wasn't good enough of a filmmaker. And yeah, I just knew it wasn't ready for it. And I think that's another thing, is like, do things when you're ready to do them and you really want to do them, as opposed to feeling like, oh, it's time to do this kind of thing. That makes sense.
I don't know, I think it works both ways, because when we started pre-production for the feature, there was a long time when I wasn't sure we were ready. Because but you get to a point where you also have to sort of jump off the cliff.
That's true too.
And
yeah.
go before you check all the boxes to make sure.
Yes.
So there's no hard and fast rule.
It's true. That's true. What I always try to do with my shorts, my least expensive short I did for $95, and that's actually my favorite one, actually. It's called a short called Beijing Haze, and it actually is shot in Beijing and in
Well, we're not counting the plane tickets to Beijing.
Oh yeah, not the plane ticket part of it. We actually chartered the jet, so that was like, no, we didn't. And my most expensive short was 40 grand, and that was a commission from ITVS. That was a sci-fi short where we got to build sets, we got to pay everybody, I only say that because with each short, the only kind of compass that we had for, I think, in the shorts is like, okay, for every short that we're gonna do, let's push something, and if possible, push multiple things. So my first short is like 4 minutes. It's just one character in an apartment, and it's just a dilemma that she's having. She's trying to decide whether to go out on a blind date or not, and that's something that we shot in 2.5 hours, and it wound up doing like 12 festivals and actually winning some award money and stuff. It cost like $150, and so for the next short, which actually turned out to be the shootout short that we wound up doing, there was 3 characters in it, and there's still just one location, but we shot it all in one night because it was a shootout film. I tried to push the storytelling in it, and just tried to do that with each one. So definitely, I would suggest when you're out there making your shorts, don't do the same thing you did. Do something different. Push yourself, because your shorts are because you want to get better. And so I think the last short we did before this was the 40,000 one, right? It was the digital antiquity. So that was the biggest production I did, and it's still only like 5 days, but all my other ones were like a couple hours or a couple days of shooting. So to actually have built this like tunnel set to work with visual effects, it was a much more complicated production. but it was kind of like, okay, I can kind of see myself scaling up to feature level stuff because, you know, I've done a 5-day shoot now. Okay, maybe I can do an 18-day shoot now. You know, I've already worked with visual effects, you know, on this film. Okay, maybe I can do it on this film. You know, and it was basically kind of skill building over, you know, half a dozen years.
Well, maybe that's a good opportunity for like people in the audience who have made shorts, but is like what's stopping you from moving up to a feature, or what do you see as your biggest challenge? Is that something you wanted to find out during this panel?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, how did you go about fundraising?
Okay. Okay, you'll see fundraising was the second step, right? So the first important thing, and that's, we're writing our second film right now, and it's the same thing. We're actually more concerned about coming up with a script we love rather than like, you know, going out there and raising money, you know? Yeah, raising money is daunting, you know? But on the other hand, films that you can do at tiny budget points now, like it just keeps getting better and better. Has everyone seen Tangerine?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You know, that's the film that you will always be able to point to, you know, when you are making an excuse that, oh, I don't have the right camera, I can't get my hands on an Alexa, I can't shoot this movie properly. Watch Tangerine, see how fantastic of a film that is, because the dude is just an incredible storyteller, and it was shot with iPhones, right? So.
The shot with what?
iPhone 4.
iPhone. It was shot
Wait,
with the
5S?
iPhone.
Yeah.
I think it was the 5S.
5S.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the film that shot with iPhones. It was at Slamdance. It's up for an Indie Spirit Award or a couple of them. It's a fantastic film, and it just, even if you didn't know anything about that, you'd watch it and go, "This is fantastic. This is a really wonderful film."
But to answer his question, fundraising.
Yes.
We had from the festival circuit. We had a couple of producers that we knew from previous projects whose level we're at their level of investment. So we had a few investors to start with production money. And then we always knew that we would run out of money by post-production. And so once we had clips to show, we did a Kickstarter campaign to raise finishing funds.
That's just like, you sent them the project, you sent them the script, and you had meetings with them, or?
These were.
It's a mixture, because it's from the relationships we built from the shorts before.
And that's the good reason for just like continually trying to produce work and get it out there. It's never going to be easy, but some things do get a little bit easier, because once you've gotten to your third or fourth short, you can point back to anyone who wants to know about you and say, hey, I did this, you know, like it or not, this stuff, I produced work and it's out there.
And it's not necessarily from a sort of set out routes. Like there's once, we got a movie into Slamdance once, a couple times. And then once your name is on Slamdance, there will be producers who are like, oh, do you have a feature script? We want to see it. And you're like, oh, this is the way it's going to get done. No, you send them things and you never hear from them again.
That's right.
You know, it's like,
yeah.
Okay. Occasionally they'll send you an email, you know, same with South by. Right, where we got a short in South by.
Right.
There are people who are interested. You send them something. You think, oh, this is the way it's gonna go, and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to know what your own trajectory is. And great if somebody jumped on board, but if not, we remember, oh, this film we liked had this producer that we met at their premiere. Let's send this person an email and see if like they'd be interested in having a meeting. Like it takes so much initiative on your own, not if somebody asked.
Right.
Because they're also going to ask like 30 other people who have more scripts or more funding already.
So in our case, the fundraising for the shoot, as Joe said, you know, we raised enough money from a small group of investors, including myself. I definitely have financial skin in this game, and that's where, frankly, that's where you use your, you know, disadvantage to your advantages. Disadvantage: I have a day job. I have to be there 8 hours a day or more. So that's disadvantage. Advantage: I have a steady paycheck, and I can throw in money into my own film if I have to. So always look for that angle. But yeah, so we had some shorts out there. We had some people say, "Wow, when are you going to do a feature? You know, I would love to, you know, work with you on it, blah blah blah, that kind of thing." So we kind of built relationships, and so then, but we had to get through the film, and we knew we would have to do a Kickstarter. So we started doing the Kickstarter almost right after we shot the film, and
We were very part of why we have that making of video was we knew we'd have to compile some sort of footage.
For Kickstarter video.
Kickstarter.
Yeah,
So
so our
we-
Kickstarter video looks
Yeah.
kind of like that, right?
Yeah, if we just, you know, of course, we had more resources, we would have actually put more of that into like behind the scenes footage, behind the scenes stills. Would be great to have a still photographer on set, because that really helps when you're trying to raise more money, or to even, once you're released, to get more press stuff to send out. But it was, you know, first film, couldn't think that far ahead.
Yeah, and so writing, I started writing in 2011. I knew the next year I was definitely going to shoot a feature. That just at that point I felt ready, and I was like, and I had some other feature scripts that I was working with some producers on. They were much larger films, and you know, I was starting to get a taste of like what development hell is like, you know, on our tiny little thing, where it's like, oh well, you need this cast member to attract this money. Oh no, you need this money to attract this cast member, you know, and that kind of a like chicken and egg kind of thing. And I kind of knew that I wasn't really into that, you know. I could spend a lot of time, and it works for a lot of people. I just knew it wasn't going to work for me, partly because I didn't want to do it. I just knew like, no, I'd rather be able to fund something much smaller that we can actually do it, as opposed to spending maybe years just talking about doing it, you know, and chasing all these little, you know, things together. So, you know, but I chose the path that I knew that would work. So basically in 2011 I said, next year I'm shooting a feature. I don't know what it is yet, I haven't written it yet, but something's gonna happen. So in this, oh yeah, sorry.
Okay. Over the course of your career, when you've needed legal help, where have you turned?
I have an attorney production attorney, Fernando Ramirez. He was recommended to me by a producer I used to work with. He's terrific.
Oh, and what's his name?
Fernando Ramirez.
Okay,
He's in the East Village.
Yep.
Or West Village. Yes.
I'm fascinated that you were self-taught. I think that's so cool.
Thank you.
Was there any book or person along your journey that really inspired you?
There's a guy named Stu Maschwitz. He's like a visual effects guy. He used to work at ILM and the orphanage, and you can just like Google him, and he wrote a terrific book like 10 years ago now, when digital video was just kind of like hitting its crest, called The DV Rebels Guide, and was talking about how he's primarily just in kind of like effects and action kind of stuff, but talked about how you could do all these kind of things on the desktop, you know, with After Effects, you know, and it was really inspiring. Just the attitude was really inspiring. So I've always gravitated towards people and always tried to have that kind of orientation to myself. It's like, hey, DIY, kind of punk rock, kind of keeping it like low budget, but like looking good, you know, like always punching above your weight. So it was.
But right now, we were just talking about the Duplass brothers.
Yeah.
They're like,
Mark and Jay Duplass, like the guy everyone knows them.
They produced Tangerine. They're like, read any interview that they have time to give right now. Mark and Jay Duplass, they're really at the forefront of no excuses, get it done, do it at your level. Don't look at anybody else, just tell the story. Like everything, I feel like every interview they give is just like nuggets.
Yeah, I love reading it and
inspiration.
Yeah, and that's what this community is about, right? We're all like, you know, helping each other and being inspired. Just like 10 years ago, I was like sitting where you are and like listening to someone here talking about their feature. So, what were we talking about?
Is there another question?
Yeah, through this process, I'm at stage 3. I just started shooting. I only shot 3 scenes so far.
Okay.
But,
congratulations.
That's it. What has surprised you the most through this process? Because you had done shorts before, so from a short going to a feature, what surprised you the most?
I had no idea how much time and how much money would be involved in distribution, right? When you haven't done a feature yet, all you think about is like, oh, I can just get this shot, you know? So all you're thinking about is like the 18 days of production on a typical micro budget, you know, low budget SAG production. That's all you're thinking about, just getting through the shoot, right? And, you know, and then it's like getting the film done. You don't realize like, okay, now I have this film, how is anyone gonna see it? You can't just put it up on YouTube and expect people are gonna flock to it. There's, you know, 48 hours of video going to YouTube every like second, being uploaded every second, you know? So, I didn't know that after we, you know, premiered at a festival, there would be like 2.5 more years of like me like going to festivals, working with our theatrical booker to get it into theaters, thinking about, you know, pitching colleges and universities and community groups to show our film, thinking about how to get more attention for it on iTunes, you know, thinking about how to get it on Netflix, which had finally happened, you know, all those things.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is by the way, for me, this is all unpaid work, by the way. This is like 5.5 years of like free labor, you know, for my baby, the film.
Me too. Well, and I would say, even before that, the biggest challenge going from short to feature is, like our last short, 40 grand, sci-fi, 5-day shoot. If you get behind, you know, okay, our last day we'll do a 16-hour day. Like we'll just do it. In a feature, even though our shoot days, how many, 18? So it was like triple it, a little bit. If you get behind in the feature, you're just have to cut stuff. There's no way. If you do an 18-hour day on day 5, you're killing your crew for the next 4 days. Like there is no way of catching up. It just snowballs. So you really have to plan your pre-production in a way. And that's, I think, one thing we thought about. Like, if we had it to do over, our pre-production planning as far as production schedule would have been, we'd be much smarter about how to ease ourselves into production where it didn't get to a point. Like it got to a point in the middle, it was really, like suddenly we're getting slammed with really tough choices about what do you keep, what do you cut, and how you like not get your crew to repeat.
How many pages were you comfortable shooting today? Comfortable.
I don't think we had too much choice with comfort. It just like, this is how many days we can afford, and was it 5 or 6, or was it more than that? Caitlin, do you remember actually? I don't actually know.
I think it was like more like 6, 6.5. It was
okay.
We had long days.
Okay.
Yeah, really, really long. I mean, it was. I remember Andy after coming out of the shoot.
Andy Pang, who plays the brother.
Who plays the brother, going to an audition afterwards, and there were some of the, you know, like it's an Asian call, so there were some guys there who auditioned for film. They're like, oh, how did that go? And it got back to me. They were like, Andy said it was hell. He just said it was hell.
I remember the worst day of the shoot. I think it was like somewhere in the middle of this first week or second week. I was like looking around. We were behind. It was like, this was July of 2012, right? So we're in rural Pennsylvania. It's like super humid. It's like in the 90s or something like that. And like we're behind. We're losing the day and we're behind. And I'm the director, so like I'm the least skilled person on the set. I just like kind of hang out in between takes and, you know, in between setups. Everyone else is like scurrying around. The actors are preparing, and I'm just trying to pretend like, oh yeah, I know I'm in charge. So I see everyone scrambling around, and like, you know, I have like 6 mosquito bites on my leg, you know, and I'm looking around like, I did this. I was like, if it weren't for my stupid idea, like none of this, we wouldn't have to be suffering like this, you know? Like this, like I made myself the CEO of like this film sweatshop, kind of, you know? And I was like, actually, like wishing I was back at my air-conditioned office at my day job, you know? Then it got better, but that was...
The scene where, the day we shot our jogging scene, right before we were shooting Andy's bike breakdown, and I was helping out like with that, setting up, and I slipped in the mud and like twisted my ankle.
Sorry.
But we couldn't, there was no, like we still had to shoot jogging.
She still had to run.
And by the end of the day, my ankle was like double the size, and it was just like, I hope it goes down for tomorrow, because yeah, it was hell. It was like literally hell.
So can you go through the Netflix process?
Sure. It's really simple. We really don't know how we got onto Netflix. We really have
They
no
have
idea.
really good taste.
Yeah, that was our dream. Like we had, in terms of distribution, we had basically had 2 dreams. The same dream everyone else has is like you would get some kind of theatrical release, you know, and that you would get onto Netflix. In fact, you know, before even the finished movie was done, I didn't really even expect to have a theatrical release. You know, it's like if we got onto some online platform where people might get a chance to watch us, that would be fantastic. So we wound up getting we wound up having a small theatrical release. We released in New York and in LA, and that's how we were able to get reviews, from the Times and the LA Times and Variety. We brought on a publicist,
Publicist and a distributor. Do we have someone who?
Yeah, it's technically not a distributor, technically a booker. Basically, we're
Booker.
technically self-distributed. Someone who basically could go out and pitch AMC, pitch the theater chains in different cities. The Netflix thing, it's really simple. We work with an aggregator to get our film online. So there's an aggregator called Premier Digital. They have an indie wing called Quiver. And then basically you just pay them a setup fee, and like $100 per platform or something like that. That got us onto iTunes and Amazon. The Amazon Prime, which we weren't expecting, was like a nice thing. Amazon wound up taking us for Amazon Prime, which was great. And it's the same thing. It was like basically for a long time, I don't think any of the Netflix wasn't accepting anything from aggregators, and then somehow last year that changed. And when I heard about it, I just emailed our aggregator, Quiver, and I just said, hey, you guys pitching to Netflix again? And they were like, yeah, we are. I was like, can you pitch my movie to them? And a couple weeks later, we got an answer like, yeah, Netflix, said yes. This is the launch date. This is the license fee. These are the territories. We had like no idea how these things were developed. I mean, we'll never know how many views we got on Netflix. They just don't release that information. But I trust Netflix to get our movie out there to people, and lots of people are watching our movie that we.
Oh, they don't tell you how many views you have.
No.
But they pay you, like, they pay you to put the film on Netflix?
Yeah, I'm not paying Netflix. Man. Yeah, so this is.
That's-
So,
I
what was
think
the website called?
So there's no
Oh,
way.
the aggregator's called Quiver. They're part of Premier Digital, which is a large aggregator distributor. They're very easy to find.
So does that mean there's no like third-party accountability? Is there anybody who's checking to make sure you're getting paid what you should? Just in
The
general?
aggregator passes on money, so revenue that comes through us from iTunes and from Amazon and from Netflix all pass through the aggregator. And this aggregator, our deal with them is they just get a flat fee, so they already got a setup fee, and then anything else that comes after that comes to us. They don't take a cut.
But they're never told how many views there were.
We know how we do on the other platforms. We don't know how we do on Netflix. I don't think Netflix tells anyone, right?
No,
is
Netflix
not-
never releases any streaming numbers,
Yeah.
anything. That's why if you're an actor, you're on their Netflix show, you don't get residuals
Yeah.
because they say they can't track it, which I think is really
No.
Yes. But it's a company policy.
This is being extreme. So
Oh.
we right now want to diss Netflix. We love Netflix. Yeah,
We hire me all the time.
I will say that
But I
right
know
now.
you know how many people are watching.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, on the Netflix subject, then is it a one-time fee, or how is there any sort of checks and balances with that if you don't know?
Well, we have a license term with them, and they, we'll get paid from them on a quarterly basis. So I mean, if I don't get a check in like a month or two, I will say something, but I'm pretty sure they.
So it's not
their
based
check is not
on
gonna
the
be
amount of viewership?
Not a Netflix, not our Netflix deal. I don't think anyone's Netflix deal is that, because then they'd have to reveal what their viewership is. Yeah, it's just a flat licensing fee. Yes.
Did your Kickstarter campaign, was it very successful?
We met our goal. Our goal was $30,000 in 30 days, and we did like 31,000 or something like that. It was especially challenging because we did it during Hurricane Sandy here.
Ooh.
So a couple days after we launched, Hurricane Sandy hit New York, and it's really awkward to ask people for money when they don't have power in their house. It's really awkward. Although, because we're filmmakers, we do it anyway, but we're shameless. Thank you.